How is this going to affect Venezuela? Is this going to benefit Venezuela?
No, I don't think so, Luis. Well, I mean, if the idea of the president is only to go against illegal mining, then it's okay, because we don't want to see illegal mining. We don't want to see the searching for gold with toxic fluids like mercury. So it's all good if that's the final idea, to just go against the illegal miners of the region. Now, I think that this decree goes far, broader than that.
And how? Why do you think that, Alberto?
Because there's a precedent. I mean, Luis, if you look at what President Chavez has done since he took office, he has basically nationalized the telecommunications industry. He has gone against supermarkets. He has gone against the oil industry. He has gone against a lot of industries, because he has a very specific agenda. His agenda is the socialism of the 21st century, and the private sector doesn't really fit too well in that model. So I guess this is just another move to fully nationalize the Venezuelan economy.
Alberto, we're in record high prices for gold, and with this going on in Venezuela, will this have an international effect?
Well, it had a little bit of an effect on the market when the announcement came out. I think it was a 1% move on the market. Now, Venezuela is not a big oil producer. I read that Venezuela is number 22 in the world, so it's really not a big producer of gold. And the other problem, Luis, that I see here is, we know how governments tend to be less efficient at providing some services, and I think that mining gold is one of those industries in which the government is not going to do great. So the fact that the government is taking over the industry as a whole, then probably means that Venezuela is not going to be that successful in becoming a gold superpower.
Alberto, let's keep on talking about Venezuela. The Wall Street Journal reports today that Venezuela plans to transfer billions of dollars in cash reserves from abroad to banks in Russia, to banks in China and Brazil, and gold from European banks to its central bank vaults.